الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh and welcome to Islamic Oasis Live. As promised, brothers and sisters, we were actually waiting to see how we can get our brother, Dr. Abdur Rafay, back on this channel. You heard uh, he was here before. This was the first time when he had just visited Gaza. Of course, he's a doctor. He has visited medical facilities, obviously seen the realities on the ground, and of course, facing what it takes to even to get to such places. And war zones are not easy places to be in, especially due to security and more than anything, unfortunate realities that we have to deal with, and those are our own hukam. When the Muslim youth, Muslim activists, Muslim professionals, doctors were trying to get to these places and trying to help in any way possible. And they have become the first defense for this unfortunate occupation of the Muslim lands. So to start with, inshallah, we have brought our Dr. Abdur Rafay, back up again, and this is to discuss his second uh, uh, trip to Gaza. The Prophet ﷺ, brothers and sisters, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He says that al-jihadu lazza. Jihad itself, it has a certain type of lazza in it. And the ones who are in that struggle, they know what that sweetness is. Just like iman has its own sweetness. And so a lot of times we always ask brothers who have been to these places, what takes you back, man? It's not like you're going to Disneyland. It is a war zone. It is bombs are falling, assassins are running around, people are being taken out. In this case, all out genocide taking place. So let's start with this discussion, brothers and sisters. First of all, Dr. Abdur Rafay, welcome back to Islamic Oasis Live. Akhi.
Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for inviting me.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Dr. Abdur Rafay, we work with a lot of doctors, in war zones. This is something has become, especially of Islamic Oasis, working with doctors who are in many ways have become specialists in war zones. You've seen our Dr. Shahjul Islam.
Yes.
We continuously bring him on the show. Actually, we were just talking this morning also from Damashq and what's happening in Damashq. And then, when we're talking about Gaza, you always come to mind. Sheikh, let's begin this conversation with what makes you go back to Gaza? As I said in the beginning, this is not a walk in the park. This is, after all, a live genocide taking place.
Yeah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yeah, I think the main reason is the obligation that we have as Muslims and ones who are qualified to assist in those matters, that you're pushed by your responsibility for the ummah, your responsibility towards the ummah, your drive to help the ummah, and the restlessness that you have in your heart and your mind about what is happening there, about this genocide, and you just can't sit still, and you have to be involved in some actionable items that can benefit the ummah. And I think that's the main drive. It is because of this obligation that you have as a Muslim to help with in the means that you have, the ability that you have, the capabilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, to assist with helping the ummah. I think that's the number one drive. And of course, there is a certain humanitarian value that comes with it as well. But the main obligation is the obligation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts upon our shoulders, to be there front and center for the sake of this ummah. And it's not just myself in this particular work, but in other efforts that every Muslim gets involved in, with the sole focus of working for the ummah, working for the benefit of the ummah, and to see a brighter future. And I think this drive has to be in the hearts and minds for every Muslim. You cannot wake up and cannot go back to what's normal in your life. And there is no sitting still in the matters of this ummah. And I'm sure, I'm sure this connects with a lot of Muslims, is that you see the insane amount of suffering throughout the global ummah, and if you are not concerned about it, there is something wrong in your heart and mind. And I say this pretty bluntly because um, how is it that you can uh, see what's on the news, on your social media feeds and so forth, and you just scroll forward and you just ignore it, um, and you do not respond to the calls of help that is echoing across the globe from the Ummah and from people, regardless of who they are, Muslims or non-Muslims. The world is in a mess, and we
Sheikh,
as a
let me
we
do
have an
you
obligation.
the
Yeah,
response that you're seeing from the doctors, let's say,
yeah,
do you think there's enough doctors? Let's say, let's start up from amongst the Muslims.
yeah.
Do you think that the response of the Muslim doctors has been adequate to as Muslims? Because at the end of the day, and I'll look, and I'll tell you why I'm asking this question in this manner.
Mhm.
You know, and I actually want to come back to your trip, but I just want to see your take on this. The Gaza narrative has, in many ways, been taken by outsiders. Uh,
Mm,
you look at the Marxists are out there, the socialists are out there. They're, whether humanitarians or even political activists, out there doing their thing. But we haven't seen Muslims really being able to take this cause, because even though Gaza is our cause, and
yeah.
so first question: do you think the medical sector amongst the Muslims, have they really responded to this call? And number two, in general, do you see that the Muslims have really given this task the importance that it deserves?
So, I mean, I can speak from my experience and some interactions with the physicians. I mean, I think there are thousands and thousands of doctors that want to go and help, and I don't doubt that at all. From among the Muslims who are outside of Gaza, there is there is you can say a coalition of doctors that want to go, that want to help, that want to do what they can to help assist in preventing this genocide, or assisting the injured, etc. But unfortunately, it's just very, very difficult to enter into Gaza because of the Zionist entities, occupation, and restrictions. There are voices that are in the media. Now, if we speak of Western media, there are some voices that get that coverage, but many are ignored, and that's done on purpose. Obviously, many are ignored. Many are not given the limelight they need, and their narrative, or which is the Muslim narrative or the doctor's narrative, is subdued. And this is part of the media campaign, the Zionist propaganda, and so forth. So I think that there is the intention for many doctors to go and help, but the reality is it is quite restrictive. Um, Now, having said that, the doctors that do go in, or the doctors that are currently there, or are trying to help, it's not enough. Just to answer your previous point, there is that it's not enough. It's a daily sort of massacre that occurs, and no matter what you do, it's just a drop in the bucket, and it continues. So you have, for example, in the past few days, 100 casualties, 100 people dead per day,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
just it's just numbers. It doesn't even matter anymore for the world, for the Zionists, for the American Empire, the West in general. We're just like, you're stomping cockroaches, and that's 100 people a day that are killed, and hundreds more that are injured. There is no amount of numbers of doctors that you can send will be enough, unless and until the bombs stop. But this is going to be years and years and years and years of treating the injured, the disabled, and so forth. But I think even in the community, you'll see, physicians talk about going there, helping somehow, doing this, etc. But it does require some sacrifice, and that's where I think you're leading to that point, is that, you know, uh, who's willing to sacrifice for the sake of the summah? Because everybody has obligations, they have families and children and all that stuff. And this is where we have to be uncomfortable with our daily routines and with our normal lives, and say that, look, you cannot, as a doctor, as a physician, or whoever it is, you cannot rest until you see this massacre stopped.
Sheikh, it's true, but look, I guess in some ways I am trying to take our own responsible first.
Yes.
For instance, Syria. I mean, we saw what happened 10 years, 12 years, almost 500,000 people injured, almost a million killed, maybe more. Sheikh, even then, okay, let me put it this way. When we see the doctors, majority of the doctors that we're seeing that are able to go inside are Western trained doctors, US, UK. Am I right in saying that? I mean, do you see doctors coming from the Middle East in
Yes,
general? Did you see doctors coming
there
in from
are.
India, Pakistan, Asia? I mean, or is it that you're seeing UK, Australia, US? What are you seeing? What is the trend?
So it depends. So there's many NGOs that try and take physicians into Gaza. There are physicians who are trying to come in from the Middle East, from Jordan, from Algeria, from Egypt,
Oh,
from
even from Egypt itself.
even from Egypt. Yes, yes, even from Egypt. And there was a delegation that came from Indonesia. There was so forth. So there are physicians that are coming from the Muslim countries, and some are able to get in, and many are denied. So, for example, the recent mission I went in, we had 14 doctors in total. Among those 14, I was the only one from the United States. Everybody else was from the Middle East, whether it was Algeria, whether it was Tunisia, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, also, and so forth. There was one brother who was a Moroccan who had a French nationality, as well. So everybody in that group was from the Middle East. And among the 14 physicians, only two were allowed, including myself.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was myself and the other brother who was Moroccan in origin but had a French passport. So that was that. And they allowed only two of us. So when you go there, now this time around, you have to go through Jordan, and you got to be there the day before, a day or two before your actual mission date starts, and they tell you, the Zionist forces, the IDF, they give you a clearance the night before you're supposed to enter. So until like 10 o'clock at night, you don't know if they will allow you to enter or not.
Hmm.
So that's
But they
and
tell
so,
you that these are the dates
the
that you're
doctor's
thinking
approved
of.
to enter. Yeah. So
Oh,
what
okay.
happens is the NGO, whichever NGO you go to, you work through the UN and the WHO,
Mm.
and then they coordinate the NGO, the WHO, which is part of the UN. They coordinate with the IDF, saying that these are the physicians, these are their licenses and their passports, these are their specialties, and we want them to enter and serve in X, Y, and Z locations. And you
Also, the
have to,
locations are also given by them.
yes, yeah, the locations are the locations, you have to tell them where so and so doctor is working and so forth. The need the need for certain physicians is coordinated by the Ministry of Health in Gaza. So the
Mm.
Ministry of Health in Gaza, they tell you, hey, we need thoracic surgeon in this particular hospital, we need orthopedics in another hospital, and so forth. But all of this coordination, the genocidal forces, they know about it. So because they are the ones who give you approval, so without them allowing you entry, there's absolutely no way, because they control everything, obviously, as we know. So you'll see, and it's pretty random. Sometimes they will allow somebody to come from Egypt, but other times they don't allow it. I mean, it really depends on how they do their background checks and who's at the desk allowing and not allowing and so forth. Um, so yes, I would definitely say there are a lot of doctors that are trying to come from the neighboring countries and help, but they are restricted. They are 100%. So even, for example, if there's a physician who has any Palestinian background, so let's say he's a citizen of Jordan but has a Palestinian background, he's not allowed. Or if he's a citizen of America, he was born and raised in the United States, he has an American passport, but his father is Palestinian or his grandfather is Palestinian, he's not allowed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they are that restrictive. um, so yes, so that's the problem there, is that, and which goes to the broader point, right? You want to do a lot. The ummah wants to do a lot. The ummah wants to go and help. The ummah wants to donate. It wants to give charity. It wants to take food and supplies, and it wants to break the siege. As we know, the people from North Africa, all the way from Algeria, Tunisia, etc., going across, were prevented, obviously, by the occupying entity, uh, and by the hukam that prevent, or who that maintain this siege, right? So they play hand in glove with this. So that the convoy that wanted to break the siege could not enter because it was stopped by the Egyptian government. The lady that wanted to take the boat across from the Mediterranean gets arrested by the Israeli forces and so forth. So you know, um, a lot of this, our hands are bound, you know, by the genocidal forces and by the Muslim hukam that maintain such restrictions, maintain such siege, and so on.
So, Sheikh, so you're saying it's not that the people don't want to do the work; they're not allowed to do the work.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, man. I said this last time too when I was here. There's billions of dollars worth of aid that at that time when I went through Rafah, with trucks, semi trucks,
Right.
lined up on both sides of the road, double laned, and that's probably billions of dollars worth of aid that have been sent by every organization that you could think of across the Muslim world and even the non-Muslims, but it doesn't go in.
Mm.
Right? It doesn't go in because the Zionists give the order to the Egyptians saying that no, you're not allowed to bring it in. So it just sits there on the borders. And we know reports that came out later that the Egyptians were taking a cut, right? Where they're asking for fees and all that stuff, and you can bribe them. Or even what came on later a few months ago, even the Jordanians, the Jordanian government, when they were dropping those
$2,200 a
pallets,
truck.
you
Yeah.
know, exactly.
Well,
Like this
we've been
guy,
paying that for a while, man. I mean,
I know
yeah, it was what an unfortunate situation, but we have been. I mean,
unfortunately, right?
heck,
So
they were
there
asking
are,
us for even. I don't know if you, I mean, did they ask you? You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. But the thing is, yeah, in the name of fees, do they ask doctors anything?
no,
Because I know
no,
some
nothing
people
of that
being
sort.
asked,
Yeah.
these iPhones, the specific color iPhones for their Allah knows best. I mean, some of them even saying for their girlfriends, man. I mean, so is this? Did you see
No,
this? I mean,
yeah, no, I haven't. I know I haven't faced anything of that sort where I had to, bribe somebody
yeah,
to get something in and so forth. And that's not been the case. Even when I went the first time, I was carrying a lot of medications, etc. And the Egyptian customs guys were like searching all of my bag, all of these medications and so forth. And even at that time, somebody just said, just hand him a $20 bill, man, he'll let you go. Like,
yeah.
no, I'm not doing that. I told him I'm going to just sit there. I have supper. I'm going to wait 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is. I am not playing that game. This Sifarish thing that it's very common in
Speed
our
money, speed money.
countries.
We call it speed
What is
money.
it called, sorry?
We call it speed money.
Speed money. Okay. Yeah. So, and I told the guy, it's like, look, man, well, I don't know what you're.
I mean, these things have become terminologies, man. I mean, official
Oh,
terminologies. You know
really?
how you want to get things done.
Yeah, I
Sheikh,
mean, it's unfortunate. Some of it I understand. It's out of desperation because of the income that our people earn in our countries and so forth, especially the police officers and this. They don't earn much, and so they have to ask for. I think in Urdu we say bakshish, which is fine. Bakshish is fine, but then when it comes to this issue of, okay, I got to give you some money so you can sort of hide it underneath the carpet and go, that doesn't sit well. But nonetheless, the point is that the Egyptian government, the Jordanian government, they profited
oh, of course. I mean,
out of
war in
the
general
aid
is
that was
profit.
being sent by sincere Muslims, by the sincerity of the Ummah. They profited out of that, and the Ummah in Gaza continue to suffer because of the crimes of these people.
Sheikh,
Uh,
when you get inside,
yeah.
I'm sure your heart is racing and you want to get in there. But when you get inside, I mean, it's a complete different world. You all of a sudden you're in a whole different world. So
Yeah.
describe to me, Sheikh. Yani, you're now. What goes through your mind when you enter Gaza?
Subhanallah, both times, this is from the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was no fear. And not because I'm some brave guy or anything of that sort, nerves of steel or whatever. No, it was just because of the dua, right? It is because of dua. It is because of dhikr. It is because that you're here for a purpose, and so that mentality has to be there, and that mindset has to be there. That you're here for the purpose, for the sake of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, for the sake of the Ummah, and that has to be front and center. And when you enter, everybody's, we've heard these terminologies being used, which is like the scenes are apocalyptic. They're like those sci-fi movies where you're in somewhere in the future and it's everything is just destroyed and you're living in rubble. And that's exactly what it is. And we have all seen those images, those drone images on social media that have seen the destruction. But it is like that. It is of the sort where um, you live in a sort of a dystopia. You come from, let's say, your home, your west. You've got all sort of amenities, and over there's nothing. There's no running water. There's no paved streets. There's dust and smell of gunpowder and death and destruction everywhere. You see children in clothes that they've probably been worn out for weeks on or months on end, without slippers, taking a stick and playing in the sand, playing in the rubble of destroyed buildings and homes and so forth. Um, these are horrible scenes. You will see, especially around the hospital, people, bandaged up, patients lying on the floor, bleeding out, um, infection rampant. Every single family they're struggling. People are in desperate situation. Um, there's no schools. Schools are destroyed. There is no. I mean, to the point, it's summer, here, and you have greenery. You've got grass growing out. You've got trees. There, it's nothing but rubble. The
Mm.
greenery is gone. There's no parks. There's no swings where the children are playing. Um, Playgrounds are not there. I went to Mawasi, which is the
Yeah.
beach area, the sand area, and the seas there. I mean, people are living in these tents on the sand. They dig into the sand to see if they can get some water. The tent has, if it rains, they get flooded. The bathroom facilities are not there, so you're just digging a hole and using that as your bathroom. And then if you go out to the sea to even go out and fish, there are these boats. The Israelis have gunboats, gunships, I think call them. They'll shoot at you.
Yeah.
You know, they're monitoring the sea as well. So if kids go and play in the sea, or if somebody goes out to go fishing or to catch some fish for food, these um, inhumane genocidal forces, they shoot at you, right? I mean, it's insane the amount of destruction that there is. Um, you know, I met a family um, who they lost everything. They have nothing. They can barely afford a tent, or if they have a tent, they kind of makeshift tent. They don't have clothes. They don't have food. They don't have money. The clothes that they have is one or two pairs, and then they just recycle that. A family of five with husband, wife, and children, um, and literally they're all waiting to be shaheed. They're waiting to be killed, because they say we don't know it's going to be us. I mean, there was a child that was brought in, I think almost 2 days after the bombing, in those tents. You know, a 3-month-old kid that was buried, in the sand because they bombed. You know, head smashed, eyes bulged, eyes sunken in, brain matter coming out, and so forth. You know, So these are the scenes that are there on a daily basis, especially with this past few months where the siege is there. There's no food. The people are living off of canned hummus and canned food, on day in, day out. They may get one meal a day. You will see kids lined up to get some drops of water in their buckets that they will use for cooking, washing, wudu, and whatnot. And that's about it. The World Health Kitchen, right?
Mm.
They were cooking food and so forth. So when I was there, I think the second week of my mission, they closed shop. They're like, we don't have anything. The World Health Kitchen, that was a soup kitchen that's providing food, which is nothing special. It was beans or pasta or some rice,
Right.
you and that was it. And they closed shop. You know, and subhanallah, like even myself when we were there, that's all I ate every day. It was canned hummus, canned food. If we were lucky, we maybe once in a while got canned tuna, or canned corned beef. you know. But that was it. Potato was rare. Filfil is there. The peppers. I don't know. The Ghazavi diet is a little bit different. They like hot stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, the peppers were there. Cucumbers were rare. I mean, for example, even the point that olive oil, there was no olive oil, and the little bit of olive oil that I had was because one of the doctors brought it from outside. You
Oh wow.
know, Watini, like, this is the land of olives. This is the land Watini was Zaituni, Waturi
Mhm.
Sinin, right? There is no olive oil, which is a staple food, and the sugar is not there. Stuff like this, basic things that we take for granted, is either very limited or absolutely not there. And
Sheikh,
let me,
how much do you think this war is regarding, and how much is it psychological versus actual killing? And I guess what I'm asking is what do the designers want from the people? Yani the kind of killing that's taking place is unprecedented, Sheikh. I mean, of course, it
yeah,
happened in Bosnia, it happened many other places, but the thing is here, maybe one thing that we are actually seeing this live, but what do you, what is this really about, Sheikh? And in front
yeah,
of the whole world, in front of and this type of killing, knowing that the whole world is watching, people would commit this type of crimes in hiding, Sheikh. But this is
yeah.
something. So tell me, what is this really about?
I think on a broader level, this is Islam versus Kufa, and we have to frame it in this manner.
Mm,
because these are the Murabitun of Gaza that are holding up the fort for Islam, for the Ummah, for protecting the Holy Land, protecting Masjid al-Aqsa, and they are at the front lines. The Zionists have a project, which is the Greater Israel. Their whole psyche is built on this narrative of that we are the promised people, have the promised land,
mm,
we are the special race, and that's where this root of their evil comes from. Is this hyper nationalism? Is this the superiority complex that they contain? That somehow they're better than everybody else, and they can do Amalek, right? They can genocide
mm,
a
mm,
people because they are of the superior race, and they have no remorse in doing so. And that mentality is ingrained in that society. And I'm saying this, very clearly, is that I'm not saying it is in the idea for Netanyahu. I'm saying it's the society.
mm,
The
mm.
whole society
Yeah,
is that
I
is
mean,
that
almost
they
90%, if not more, population wants they
want
want
it,
what
yeah,
they're seeing.
exactly, and
Yeah.
polls after polls after polls have showed that they are ready to genocide a whole nation just because of their one fear of the other, and of their ingrained mentality that they're superior than somebody else. And we know from Islam, obviously, this sort of mentality is not allowed, but they are programmed in this manner. And what they think is that they can bomb you to smithereens into submission, and that you will accept a deal on the table that, we're going to evacuate these 2 million people to somewhere, whether it's the Sinai, whether it's in Egypt, whether it's in Jordan, we don't care. But we want you to submit come to a complete submission and accept this sort of um, control of the whole area, and that's what they want. Um, so that's I think that's what they think they can do to the Muslims.
But are they surprised from the resistance of the people, just the average Ghazavi? Yani, what do you see, Sheikh? Yani, it's one thing. Fine, you can say there are freedom fighters out there; they're doing their thing. But the average, just the the will to stay there.
Yeah, I think this is one of those people. These are one of those people, specifically from Gaza, and obviously some little people from West Bank also. There's a slight bit of difference, but people in Gaza have lived through occupation for decades.
Mm.
They have suffered through decades. They have become hardened by the occupation, and this is not just this round of genocide for the past 2 years, but they have lived under a siege for 14 or 17 years, I believe, prior to this, right?
I mean, there
Where
was a siege 2 years hardcore. I mean, of course, this has been going on
years,
for a
of
while,
course,
but
right
right
now,
before
but
this, there
before
was a
that,
siege. Yeah, yeah.
correct. Even before that, everything was
Every Ramadan is a new. We've
correct.
seen it all. Yes.
We've seen this all, and so they're experiencing this, but obviously, of course, not to this extent. But they have been I would say hardened by the occupation for decades, and the people have been raised in a manner in such a manner, so they have resistance built in them. And then, of course, if you talk to the people. There's two answers that I got, and I asked some of the people that I spoke with, the nurses, the locals, etc. So, what do you think is the solution? Where is this going? Right? 2 years of this, you're suffering through this. What is the solution? What are you thinking? And the number one response is throughout the whole this they say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal, right? Um, you get massacred, families are killed, etc. The number one thing they say is Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And if you ask them, the follow up question is that, will you leave? Some will say, no, we're not going to leave. This is our home. This is our land. I was born and raised here. And the 15-year-old, the 14-year-old, the 17-year-old, they have been born in this occupation.
Mm.
And now you have kids that are born in this genocide. So some have been born and some have been even killed within these 2 years. And then now this time around, there are some who have said, I just want to leave. And it's enough is enough. I want to go somewhere else. There's nothing left in Gaza, and they
See,
have the complete right to say that, because at some point,
that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, look,
insan will say, yeah,
right, but here's the thing. So, and of course, we're talking about human beings here. I mean, look,
correct,
Sheikh,
yes,
in many times in the hospitals that I've worked, the of course there's stories of heroism and everything else. But look, I've seen sisters uh, take pills and kill themselves. I've seen, the people. Suicide was very common in Syria. It had become very common, especially amongst females,
mhm,
uh,
yeah,
because of the amount of what they were seeing. I mean, husband killed, children killed, parents killed, brothers killed, uncles killed. Man, this was, and to the point, you would observe people walking around like zombies, just have no clue what's going to be next. You just you just literally like zombies. And people would tell me, man, we have so many traffic accidents because people have no idea. They're just they're just living.
yeah,
But we are, after all, human beings, Sheikh. what
yes,
what is what do you see from this? I mean, talk to me from the psychological part here. From the effects of this. I mean, I'm sure there is depression. I am sure there is
100%, yeah,
huge amounts of mental.
yeah.
What's happening,
Yes,
Sheikh?
I
Tell
mean,
me
majority
about
of
so
the
the people
yeah,
here.
yeah, majority of the population, they're in desperate situation. Um, the kids are suffering psychologically. They have dazed eyes. They don't know what's happening. Um, you know, the adults who are breaking down, who can't take it anymore. I mean, I had an anesthesiologist while I was operating. I mean, he's seen everything for the past 2 years, but this operation that I was on, he fainted.
Ya
You know,
salam. لا
yeah,
طبعا.
he fainted. He just broke down. He got on his knees and he couldn't stand up anymore. So the human being can take so much, and eventually you can break down. And the thing, of course, for us, alhamdulillah, 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 is that we have iman. We have
Mm,
something to look for. We have the suffering for this dunya. We have recompense for it in the akhirah. So our mental condition is much much stronger than, let's say, someone who does not have iman, who does not have the akhirah to look for, right? But obviously that those factors are there. But then the other is also there, is that the will to live and to suffer through this starts to weaken. I think yesterday, one of the people over there, they messaged me saying that they were told to evacuate, and the family basically said, no, we're not going to evacuate from this red zone. You know, said we would rather just die. Right? So to come to that conclusion that you would rather just die than survive, the mental breakdown is immense, especially with the kids. Especially with the kids, you'll see them. I mean, they come in. Some of them are in so much shock. They have uh, limbs coming off of them,
mm.
and they're not even able to scream of pain. And I've seen that so many times with the kids that I saw who have shattered limbs and hands blown off, legs blown off, etc., and they're completely dazed. That they're in so much shock. And the psychological, I mean, this trauma will last for years and years and years on end, um, especially for the children, because as we know, majority of the casualties have been women and children.
Mm.
I don't know how we could repair that. How do you come out from this? I don't have an answer to that. I don't think anybody would have an answer to that unless and until we can't even think about how to treat the people, the children psychologically, unless and until this genocide stops, this bombing stops. There is some respite, you know. But they give you these. Okay, we'll have a few weeks of 6 weeks of ceasefire, and then all that stuff. These games that they're playing with the people psychologically, right? That you will get a break from this somehow. Um, it is all about trying to break you down psychologically, break the resistance down, break your perseverance down, and so forth. And they're failing. They are failing. They are not able to. They're not able to solve this issue. They have lost their end game, I would say, at this point. And now it's just about just keep massacring because there is no exit here. The people are continuing to resist despite the psychological trauma. The Arab rulers are not willing to accept the transfer of the people, and to come to a sort of political conclusion on this. So I don't know. I don't know how we would address the mental breakdown of the population, and to what extent it goes, and how long the trauma will last. Um, I don't think anybody would have an answer on this.
Sheikh, uh, so what happens? 2 million people, the Yahud are willing to kill 2 million people.
There was a recent study that came out that estimated about 400,000 people have been killed so far.
Right. Yeah.
Out of a population of 2 million.
I mean, they're saying 1.8 million people already. I mean,
Yeah,
they keep saying 1.8,
the number
1.8 million.
number keeps going down.
Yeah,
Right.
from 2.2
Right.
to
So
1.8.
if you say 400,000 people are killed, and then thousands and thousands have been injured.
See,
And
look, Sheikh, you tell me about the Egyptians, Sheikh, next door. And you are, I mean, I can see the way you're describing. I mean, it's a very painful description of what's happening. I mean, I mean, I guess that if you would just bring that whole scenario here. But I mean, what has happened to the Arabs, Sheikh? And look, I know, you being in Egypt, when you go through what does it take to see this? You're seeing it. First of all, do the soldiers actually see what you see, Sheikh?
So the first time I was there, so you can see the soldiers barricading the border in Gaza. So you can see them on the Egyptian side. You can see them at the checkpoints going into Rafah at that time. So the soldiers are there. They can see. I mean, they can see, or they can hear, especially on the borders. They can hear. They can hear the bombs. It's they're that loud. But beyond that, everybody is seeing it, right? Everybody
That's what I'm
is seeing
saying.
it on
I
their
mean,
social media.
the populations are seeing it. I mean, what
Sure.
has gone wrong with us? Really tell me, Sheikh Yani, what has gone wrong with us? The 80 million population of Egypt, and 2 million of Jordan, and everything else there. Is
And
there a psychological? Have we become completely? Uh,
numb.
Numb? Is it? I'm trying. I'm really suffering for words here, because 2
Yeah.
years of this kind of killing, and you can't even tell me that, look, they're not seeing this. The people are not seeing what we see in the West. That social media is restricted, this, that, and the other. But Sheikh, I mean,
I think
they are Muslims at the end of the day.
um, I think there's two factors, and this is my opinion. The audience can disagree, you can disagree, but I think there's two factors. One is that we are still stuck in in nationalistic, nation state driven narrative about the situation of the Ummah.
Mm.
People still continue to think if we do something, it will harm our country. If we do something, it will harm Jordan. If we do something, it will harm Pakistan, or it will harm Egypt, and so forth. Um, So that's one factor that affects people from taking certain drastic actions. So these regimes will allow protests, will allow marches in certain countries, sometimes in Jordan, sometimes in Turkey, sometimes in Pakistan. Egypt is very restrictive, and so forth. And so I would say the Ummah's feelings, the Ummah's emotions, their thoughts are with the people in Gaza. I am 100% sure that our grandmothers in these countries, our mothers in these countries, have tears in their eyes. They're crying. They're making dua and so forth. But this factor that the nation state factor limits their actions to protest, to dua, to charity. It prevents them from thinking about the ummah from an ummah perspective. So the national interest comes first. So when Pakistan responds to India, it responds to India from a nation state perspective, from a nationalistic perspective, because Pakistan was attacked, right? Or when Iran responds to Israel bombing it, it's responding to because Iranian soil was attacked. So I'm responding from a nation state perspective to preserve my nation state, to preserve this national identity. But for 2 years, Gaza has been bombed. Iran has been just throwing fire, has not even done anything significant, right? It hasn't. It threw some firecrackers in an empty desert once before, and that was it. So that factor is still controlling our vision for what the future should be. The second thing I would say is that we are not being directed as an ummah by the ulama, by the political leaders within the Muslim communities towards the correct direction on how to solve this issue, right? Um, there is no movement against the rulers, because we all know that many people feel that they cannot do anything, they are unable to do anything because we're just one person or we're just a group of people, etc. The actions that need to be done to stop this genocide have to come from a position of force, from a position of military intervention, from a position of political pressure, from a position of sanctions. And that can only be done by the rulers, by the hukam, who have that political power, who have the military, who have the ability to put sanctions, who have the ability to close the waterways, turn the pipeline off. All of these things that need to be done is done. It has to be from the people who have power, which are the rulers. And the ulama, the political leadership, the activists are not directing their activism against them. And I think that's what's missing, right? The streets have to erupt against them. And then and only then will you see some forcible action, some physical action, some substantial movement against this genocide. Otherwise, this will continue. And I think these are the two factors that we as an ummah have to work against. That stop this nation state narrative. We need people to think from an ummah perspective and correct our direction of political change by removing these hukam who maintain the siege, who maintain the genocide, who are part and parcel of conducting this genocide. And this is where that sort of mental breakdown or mental link has to be made, so that we as an ummah, we start thinking in this manner. And then what I would add is that this is the effort that's needed. We're beyond raising awareness. We're beyond sharing on social media. We're beyond all of that. It's done. Every single person on this planet who has access to media or whatnot knows what's happened,
right?
Muslim or non-Muslim. So we're beyond all of that. Right now, what needs to be done is what I just said previously. And that
Sheikh,
is where the mobilization have to be done. And then finally, just one point, just to add to this, is that look, even our people in the Middle East, in Pakistan, in Egypt, in Jordan, they themselves are occupied. You go to these countries, you go to Saudi, you can't say anything against MBS or the 2030 vision or MBZ in the UAE or Egypt, etc. As soon as you say anything, you get picked up, you put in jail, the mukhawarat are at your door, and so forth. So unless and until the streets of Jordan, the streets of Pakistan, the streets of Egypt, the streets of Saudi and UAE, unless or until they themselves are released from their occupation, from their chains that are controlling them, the chains that are chaining them to inaction, this we won't have a solution for this. Right? The streets have to erupt. The streets have to erupt.
Sheikh, I have one more question regarding this, but then I want to actually talk to you a little bit about Muharram because we are obviously in Muharram. And uh, look, Egypt was not like this. I mean, you look at Abdul Nasser time, you look at Sadat's time. Sadat was killed by Islambuli. You look at uh, one of the things that they have. I mean, I'm asking you this because I want to know your observation on this. One of the things has been that the lack of Islamic movements within these regions, within these, I guess, in these areas.
Mhm.
I mean, Ikhwan in many ways has been dismantled, uh, at least physically. It's not, its impact is not as much. We see what Jordan did with Ikhwan Muslimin and many other organizations. Sheikh, really, I mean, the political awareness, this is one thing. Is this, I guess what I'm asking is this, the people don't know what should be done, I mean, the day after kind of thing. Is that
Mm.
what's making the people fear? Because, I mean, Egypt tried and they got, Sisi. And then you
Yeah.
have, and then now we see Ahmed Shara in Syria after 10, 12 years of hell in Syria. And then you look at
Yeah.
everywhere else. So do you think that's also become a hurdle or has created hurdles, mental blocks?
Yeah. I think it's especially after the Arab Revolution, right?
The Arab Spring in general.
I'm sorry, Arab Spring.
Yeah.
These governments, the Saudi government, the UAE government, Egypt, Jordan, etc., they made a concerted effort to sort of break down Islamic movements. They made a concerted effort to um, politically, intellectually, from a Islamic sort of Sharia perspective, give them sort of a legal. Sorry, I'm just going to turn this one off. Give them a Sharia um, backing to break down some of these movements, because these regimes saw that these movements, whether it's Ikhwan, whether it's X, Y, and Z movements, etc., they can disrupt the current world order. They can disrupt the order within these countries, right? So um, so you will see the Salafi side of maintaining the Wali al-Amr and not rebelling against the Wali al-Amr. And then you see another spectrum where they've utilized the Sufi ulama like Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya and Hamza Yusuf, etc., to also acquiesce to maintaining Wali al-Amr. So from the Salafi and the sort of Sufi side. And this sort of concerted effort from both perspective, and both are from different spectrums of Islam, and both give Shari evidences, even though they're all skewed, and they use hadith, etc., in an incorrect manner to justify accepting the current leadership, right? So that's one aspect, which is that these governments have done everything in their power to break down Islamic movements, Islamic activists, to the point that they do not cause another Arab Spring. Number two is what you were pointing to, is that there is a lack of political awareness. And I say this from, as we know, part of dawah, part of discussing the issue of the khilafah, part of discussing what should an Islamic state look like, etc. This is our forte. This is what we are involved in. This is what our work is, right? And you can see that, like you just said, the day after plan is not clear. The day, if you
Yeah, the
want to start
vision of the ummah,
the
it
vision,
lacks vision.
it lacks vision. And again, I'm saying this with all sincerity to the Islamic movements and so forth and so on. The lack of vision of how to build in a state, it's still within the nation state's framework. You see, because whether it is Ahmed Sharra, whether it is Ahmed Ghanouchi in Tunisia, whether it was Imran Khan, they're all working within the nation state concept. They're all working within maintaining the current order. They're trying to sort of mix some democracy here and there, and some Islam here and there, and so forth. The the political vision of what our future should look like, what an Islamic state should look like, what should be our ruling structure, etc. This unfortunately is weak or not there. And that's why um, you will see what you see. Muhammad Mursi, rahimahullah, comes into power in Egypt, and some of the Salafi movements, they come into power with him.
Yeah, Hizb
Form a
al-Nur
coalition
in
government.
Egypt. Yeah, of course.
Correct. They form a coalition government, and there is no change in the system, right? It's the same sort of, well, so-called, democratic dictatorship, whatever it is, and the power still resides within the Egyptian army. And within a year, he's taken out, right? And if you look at now the recent example, even with Afghanistan, or if you take the example of Syria as well, we see that it is still a sort of a secular nation state model, right?
Sheikh,
Uh,
I'm gonna,
yeah.
I'm gonna ask you one usuli question. I know I told you I was gonna take you to Muharram, but it just what you just said triggered something in my mind. The thing, Sheikh, is that every era after the era of the Sahaba, whatever we've seen, for instance, you have muhaddithin came at the time when hadith sciences were needed. You had the likes of Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim and Tirmidhi and Hakim and all this. Then come the fuqaha and the usuliyin in general. They come and they produce this amazing work to protect the Islamic sciences and to kind of give Muslims a way forward how to look at Islamic law and how to deduce Islamic law properly. I mean, so it was all there, but what they did is that they put it on the framework to kind of give the next generation uh, how to make sure that there is continuation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you look today, Sheikh, I mean, because you spoke about ulama in the beginning, that this is something that is needed. The question to you, Sheikh, is that, I mean, of course, I mean, you're a doctor, and then I'm sure you've studied, there has to be impact of Islam on you. So I'm sure you've studied some of this when you're looking at these realities on the ground. Akhi, I mean, are the ulama lacking, do you think that they lack the sensitivity, I guess, of trying to seriously look at realities of the Muslim lands and to bring a clear solution from the text that we have? You know what I'm saying? I mean, because everything that we're seeing so far is rebranding. That's all. A constant rebranding of, okay, we saw what we saw with Al Qaeda in Syria. At the end, it accepts democracy. You see Ikhwan Muslimin at the end accepts democracy. You see Jamaat Islami in Pakistan. You see whatever that we are seeing. At the end, they're just rebranding. But do they not? I mean, are we lacking the information that's there in the text? Are they not able to seriously look into text the way that we used to look at text? Or do they really not see a solution in the text?
I think it's probably a combination of two, depending on who you speak to. Again, this is my personal opinion, and um, you will see that unfortunately they look at the text and they're not able to look at Islam from its own epistemology upon its own basis. Um,
Mm,
the
interesting.
mentality is to see if we can fit Islam in the current situation, in the
Mm,
reality that exists. Right? Sheikh Taqiyuddin Nabhani, he said this one line in one of the books, Taqatul Hizbi. I mean, you could write a whole essay on this. Is that they've made the reality their source of thinking rather than their object of thinking.
mm,
Right?
mm,
And that is the mentality that you will see among many, many ulama, is that they're looking for how do we fit Islam within the existing order? How do we fit Islam within the existing nation state, within the existing system of democracy, within the existing system of capitalism, rather than replacing the current reality with the Hukum Shari from its own epistemology, from its own basis, from its own foundations. So that's where this idea comes of regurgitation or rebranding of this, is that you're just rebranding the same ideas that um, Jamaluddin Afghani talked about, or Ahmed Abdur talked about, and all these other guys who came prior, who were the so-called reformers, and so on, and later on, you see what we see nowadays. So I think that's the sort of unfortunate part, is that they're not able to look at the reality from changing the reality. We want to change the reality so that it fits the Sharia rather than the Sharia somehow molded into fitting into the current system. So that's why you'll see ulama talk about Sharia financing in capitalism.
mm.
You know,
Maqasid al-Sharia.
maqasid sharia,
Mm,
etc. So somehow you want to make it legal or acceptable by taking loans and so forth and so on. So you'll see these mechanisms. You'll see what Vanushi did in Tunisia and so forth. They're all speaking in that perspective, and that's where And I encourage the ulama, the people of ilm, the people of who are talibul ilm and so forth, is that we have to stop looking at it this way. We need to look at the application of Islam, the application of the Sharia from its own basis, from ground level, from up. We need to say, you know what, we're not going to accept the current systems that exist, whether it's capitalism, whether it's parts of socialism or democracy. These are not compatible from an aqidah perspective. They're not compatible. One democracy says insan is the legislator. Islam says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the legislator. There is no compatibility here. You so I think that's the problem there. But there are obviously there have been ulama that have been there who have cut away from this, whether it's Sayyid Qutb, whether it's Sayyid Taqiyuddin Nabhani, whether it was Abu Ala Madudi initially, and so forth. Uh, but I would say they're few and far between. Um, but that's where the work is for our talibul ilm, people who are engaging in the future of Islam and want to change the future of Islam, who want to change the current world order, who want to change the future for the ummah. We have to look at Islam from its basis. We have to look at Islam as a system that has its own philosophical foundations. It has its own first principles. It has its own economic and social and political system, independent of other systems that currently exist. And we have to stop trying to mold and frame Islam to fit the secular liberal order. And that
mm,
is what is being done aggressively over the past several years and decades, etc. Is the molding of Islam by ulama or uh, ulama or political activists, etc., from all spectrums, trying to somehow fit in. So going back to Ashura, Musa alayhi salam with Firaun, he is challenging, right? Musa alayhi salam is challenging the system of Firaun. Musa alayhi salam is not saying, you know what, I am in the offices of, I am the palace of Firaun. I am sitting next to him. I'm in his own house. I have access to everything that I want to have within the court systems and the ruling structure and the ear of Firaun. He could have done that. He could have maintained that order. Right? He was uh, probably the highest position Bani Israel, a person from Bani Israel can get, including Haman, right? Uh, and you see the difference. One sides with Firaun to maintain Firaun's regime, Firaun's order, Firaun's system, Firaun's economics, his political structure, his ruling, his policies for Bani Israel. And then you have Musa alayhi salam, who's on the outside trying to break down Pharaoh's rule. And we know, and that's why, the victory for Musa alayhi salam. This is Ashura, and that's why we fast the 9th and the 10th. We say that, look, Musa is close to us as Muslims. Musa alayhi salam is close to us as Muslims. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said he is close to us. You fast on the Ashura, we're going to do more. We're going to fast on the 9th or the 10th or the 10th and the 11th. He is more close to us. And he represents someone who is very similar to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He is the one who fought Firaun and demolished his rule. And it is Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam who engages and struggles against the system of the Quraysh, of Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab and so forth. And he establishes the rule of Islam in Medina. Musa alayhi salam and his people were given that order also. So go and fight so that you can rule, you can have that authority, right? But obviously we know Bani Israel said, you and your God go fight. There's a difference. We are the people of Ummah. We are the people of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that did not forsake their Nabi, right? We didn't forsake the Nabi of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We were with him in the valley under a siege, in a concentration camp. We were with him in Badr and Khandak and so forth. We did not forsake our Nabi like the Yahud did, right? So we are the people who are more aligned towards Musa and to the struggle of Rasulullah who fought against the system that exists rather than integrate into it, rather than mold your religion to secular liberalism or to the order of Iran or to the order of the Abu Jahl and the Qurayshi system.
Sheikh, you bought.
And that's a reminder for myself and for the ulama. And so we have to be thinking in this manner. Otherwise, otherwise, to be honest, it's a bit frustrating, right?
Because there's no end to it, Sheikh.
There's no end to it.
Yes.
Exactly. There is no end to it. Is that it's a same rigmarole of regurgitation of the same concepts and same justifications and so on and so on. And we're back to, we've been doing this, by the way, for
look, the ayah in the Quran talking about 40,000 sana when he was talking about Bani Israel. Sheikh, is there a parallel to this, to us, the Ummah today, where Bani Israel did it for 40 years and we are doing it for the last, since 1924 now, where we are back and forth, and then there's no end to it. And the end, there was no end to for Bani Israel because they disobeyed Allah. And this was a form of punishment where even though they knew what needs to be done, but they couldn't, they because of what they had done with Allah Azza wa Jal, disobeying and denying the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is there connection to that with us, Sheikh?
There is a definite connection there. Is that, unless and until we make the Sharia, the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our sole purpose of living, right? the reason I live, the reason I exist, the reason I carry my conduct, my economics, my policies, my politics, my ruling, not in just personal stuff, but in everything. I mean, this is our reality, right? We will go into the depths of Zabiha Halal, right? We've been discussing this for 40 years in this country, and so forth. But when it comes to the rule of Islam, we're negligent, to say
But
the
that
least.
but that also
Yeah?
comes from the Bani Israel, the same type
It comes
of
from exactly,
mentality, right? Let's talk about,
exactly, and
let's
that's
figure
what
out a way to throw the net on Saturday. You can't do that, let's just figure that out. That's
100%,
the, and then
100%. Yeah, it's the same thing. Is that that's why and I've said this before. Is that the reason why Bani Israel is so much mentioned in the Quran is because it reflects certain realities for us.
Mm.
Because these excuses, these sort of ways to get out of implementing Sharia and so forth, etc., they all can have they all have those are all examples for us that do not do this, do not do the things that Bani Israel did, right? But unfortunately, we are falling in that same hole. So we're without a political power, without the protection of the Sharia, without the protection of the Khilafah, without the protection of the Muslim armies, um, for the past 100 plus years, and we are the at the at the behest of the West, right? Whatever the ruling nations, the West, United States, the Zionist forces, they decide our destiny, and that's the destiny we follow.
Mm.
Unless and until we break out of this, and we are no longer mentally occupied, and we think of ourselves as the best ummah. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر, which is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described us. And the calling for the good is what is directed by this ayah, is that you call for the good of Islam, you call for the implementation of Islam, you call for the life of Islam, to live by Islam. Unless and until we do that, we will not have our own independent agency. We will continue to be pawns to be utilized by the powers that be, right? So, you know, you, all that sacrifice of our revolutions across the Muslim world, and I'm not saying anything negative about the blood that has been spilled, the revolutions have been done. They were all for the sake of a better future for the ummah. But these revolutions are then misdirected, manipulated, utilized, subdued, uh, and the direction is changed because we do not make uh, the Islam as our sole priority, and then the West utilizes them to implement its goals and policies and uh, um, and its system and its power structures in our countries.
Sheikh, final question. Even though I have a lot, but we're gonna have to make we're gonna have to, because we are going
Yeah.
into, and I want to actually, next time we do this, we'll come with, because your experiences, obviously these are, yani we need to, uh, we really need to get this out to the public. Sheikh, there, and I promise this will be the last question. We have a character named Samiri in the Quran. And Samiri, the kind of role that he played when Musa alayhi salam goes to get the commandments from Allah Azza wa Jal, before he returns, Samiri has turned the people already worshipping an idol. Do you think, Sheikh, that, Bani Israel, being under a system that enslaved them for such a long time, they couldn't recognize, even after, ocean is split in front of them, they Musa alayhi salam and Nabi, if not one, two, Harun akhi, yani now Harun alayhi salam is with them. They couldn't recognize two of the Anbiya, one of them being one of the greatest Anbiya, Nabi of the Prophet Nabi of Allah Azza wa Jal. And they turned to Samiri in such a, and they were already. You see what I'm saying here? I mean, is this the effects of slavery? That is this, colonialism in today's term for us, colonial infrastructure that has made us so, even though we see all of the miracles, we see the Quran is in our hands, just like for Musa alayhi salam, for Bani Israel, ocean was split right in front of them, and we have the Quran, and especially those who understand the Book of Allah Azza wa Jal, and then we are so fast to turn to people for at the likes of Samiri.
Yeah. No, subhanAllah, that's a great point actually, and Jazakallah khairan. Um, it is relevant to the our minds being colonized, that we're unable to think beyond our occupier. We're unable to think beyond the sort of the framework that has been set for us, is that this is the only thing that you can think about. Beyond that, it's not possible. It's not a reality. You're being idealistic, right? This is what we usually
Yes.
hear, is that
And terminologies put together to define these things.
100%, yes. That you're being idealistic, you're being a radical, you're speaking from emotions rather than being realistic, right? And so forth. So these are all sort of ways that we are not even allowed to dream.
SubhanAllah.
We're not even allowed to dream. I had this discussion a few times with certain people, etc. Is that we talk about establishing the rule of Islam and becoming a power again, and removing occupation and so forth. And the brother says, those things are not possible. Please be realistic. Okay? So, okay, fine. I mean, I don't think you see that, but I'm dreaming. I'm imagining. I want something that's better for the ummah. I'm allowed to dream about it. I'm allowed to think about it, imagine it, and make it my objective to reach. And then it is broken down as that, oh, you're being idealistic. You have to live within the.
You have to be pragmatic.
Pragmatic and rational and so forth. And that's the colonized mentality, is that we and I asked, actually, I asked this brother once, is that, can we go to Mars? And so forth. And the brother, very immediately said, yes, of course we can go to Mars. Okay. Can we have an Islamic state? Oh no, I don't know about that. We're not ready. All sorts of list of excuses. But you are so quick with this response that you can go to Mars. Because going to Mars is a goal that has been established by the American psyche, by the West, we're going to conquer the moon, right? Put a man on the moon. Kennedy talked about it and so forth, right? Those were dreams. Those were aspirations. Those were realities those were dreams to become reality, right? In their minds, it was a goal that had to be reached. This is part of my progress as a nation. We're not even allowed to do that. The ulama are not even allowed to. They break that down sometimes, and so forth, and so on. So that is part of being colonized by that. You cannot even have the dreams of a different future, and that is where we, as people who are part of this dawah, who are activists, who are thinking in this manner, we have to be able to paint a picture for the ummah, saying that, look, imagine a different nation. Do not wait for Mahdi, right? Do not wait for Mahdi. The Mahdi is not coming for you. Your responsibility here is to change the oppression. Your responsibility is to break out of your chains of occupation, right? Your fact, your vision has to be that I cannot be a nation that is continued to be subdued by the West. We need to rise up. We need to build. We need to empower ourselves. We need to be like the ummah that Rasul Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas." You have that responsibility. Unless and until we look at ourselves from this positive direction and work towards a positive trajectory, we will continue to be occupied. Right? Whether we like it or not, you will be under the thumb of the Western powers, and you will be used as a pawn as needed. Whether it was, I can give many examples, but we all know this of how the ummah is used and abused for the political gains of the world powers. Rather, us who can challenge the narratives of these world powers and truly bring about justice. I mean, think about this. Is that, like you said, you have the Quran, you have the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you have the Nabi in front of you, Musa and Harun, who will give you the justice from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and you go seek something else. What is wrong with you? Right? What is wrong with you when you have the Sharia and you want democracy, you want secularism, you want the nation state, you want capitalism? Why? You have the Quran, right? You have the sacrifice.
Too many Samiris out there. That's the problem. That's why.
That's the thing, is we have to break out of this. Is that cannot be continuously mentally occupied.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. I would like to end it there. This is a very good line. Do not continue to be mentally occupied. Again, Sheikh, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you, preserve you and your family, and give you the highest reward for the kind of service that you are providing to this ummah. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal that all of us are able to use all of our skills, anything that Allah Azza wa Jal has given us for His sake, because at the end of the day, we're going to have to face Him. And finally, brothers and sisters, a reminder, because obviously the Ashura is here, and people are thinking about Musa alayhi salam and what happened to Bani Israel, and of course the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let's end this on a positive note, that this was the time of Hijrah, and this was the time where the whole world never thought that there'll be something called Medina. There'll be something called the Islamic State in Medina. No one ever thought that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the end will achieve this, and not only achieve it, but then take the da'wah to the whole world. And reminding you from the ayat, Allah Azza wa Jal, when He mentioned Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylam min al-masjid al-haram al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakna hawlah linuriyahu min ayatina innahu huwa as-sami'ul basir. And I'm reminding you from this ayah because at the end of the day, Fir'aun, all of this is connected to the discussion of Masjid al-Aqsa and freeing Masjid al-Aqsa from the hands of the treacherous and the occupiers. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.